What happens when someone at a company makes a promise, but, well, they didn't really have the right to? Is the company still on the hook for a deal it never officially signed off on? It's a tricky situation, and we're going to dive right into this fascinating idea called the authority illusion.
So, let's put you in the hot seat for a second. Imagine a huge bill lands on your desk. It's for a contract you've never even heard of, and it was signed by one of your employees who, let's just say, overstepped. Your first instinct is probably to say, nope, not paying this, right? Well, as you're about to see, it's not nearly that simple.
Okay, to get our heads around this, we need to know about two kinds of authority. First up is actual authority. This one's pretty straightforward. It's the power a company formally gives someone, written down in their employment contract or job description. Easy enough? But then there's let's call it its tricky cousin, apparent authority. And this one has nothing to do with what's on paper. It's all about perception, the vibe a company puts out there about who's in charge. So where did this whole idea of apparent authority even come from? Well, it was basically hammered out in a major court showdown way back in 1964. And trust me, this isn't just some boring history lesson. What happened in that courtroom set the stage for how these exact kinds of problems are handled even today.
All right, so let's set the scene. You've got this company, Buckhurst Properties, and on their board is a director who, get this, was never officially made the managing director, but he was acting like it. I mean, for all intents and purposes, he was the guy. He was the one calling the shots, the main point of contact. And then he goes and hires a whole firm of architects for a big new project.
So the architects do all the work, they send in the bill, and boom, the company's board comes back with a shocker. They basically say, that guy, he had no official authority to hire you, so we're not paying, not a cent. And just like that, things are about to get very, very messy. So let's just walk through how this whole thing snowballed into a lawsuit. You've got the de facto director, the guy who's acting like the boss, who goes out and signs a contract. Then the company, after all the work is done, says, no deal. So what are the architects supposed to do? Their only option was to sue, arguing that, hey, as far as they were concerned, that contract was legit.
This is where it gets super interesting. The court could have just made a simple yes or no ruling, but they didn't. Instead, they created a brilliant three-part test, a kind of blueprint, to figure out who's responsible in cases just like this one. Seriously, this was a game-changing moment for corporate law. And this test is actually pretty logical. It all comes down to three key questions. First, representation. Basically, did the company let this director look like he had authority? Either by what they did or what they didn't do. Second, reliance. Did the architects actually believe he had authority and rely on that belief to take the job? And third, the altered position. Did they actually follow through and do the work because of that belief? And when the court looked at the facts, the answer to all three questions was a huge yes. The board totally knew this guy was acting like the big boss, and they never said a word. The architects, of course, relied on that, and they did the work. So, the final verdict? The company had to pay up, every penny. Okay, I know what you're thinking. A case from 1964, why does that matter to me today? Well, the reason is simple. The rules that came out of that courtroom are still incredibly relevant. They affect how business gets done right here, right now, every single day. The court legal idea here has a fancy name, estoppel, but don't let the name scare you. All it really means is that the law can stop you from going back on your word, or in this case, on the impression you gave. If you let everyone believe something is true, you can't just suddenly turn around and deny it when it's inconvenient for you. Basically, you can't have your cake and eat it too. So what's the big takeaway for all of us today? It's huge. A company is absolutely responsible for the authority it appears to give its people. Just sitting back and letting an employee act like they have power can be just as legally binding as a signed contract. Seriously, think about how often this could happen. A manager promising a bonus they can't actually give. A salesperson offering a huge discount that was never approved. This whole principle is there to protect people who are dealing with a company in good faith, but it's also a massive wake-up call for everyone. You've got to make sure you know who has the real authority before you shake hands on a deal.
And I'm not exaggerating the importance of this. This isn't some obscure rule buried in a law book somewhere. For more than 60 years, this simple three-part test has been a fundamental piece of corporate law. It has influenced thousands upon thousands of deals and court cases all over the globe.
And that brings us to a really thought-provoking final question, especially for today. I mean, think about the modern workplace. We've got these fluid job titles, complex team structures, and projects that move at lightning speed. The line between who really has authority and who just seems to have it is getting blurrier by the day. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it, in this kind of world, who truly speaks for a company?